This is Subtext, a podcast about the psychology behind branding, perception, and human behavior. Here we talk about what happens before decisions feel conscious, the signals we respond to, the biases we don't notice.
And the quiet mechanisms that shape what we trust, choose, and defend. This isn't about trends or tactics.
It's about understanding how the human mind interacts with brands, design, and influence in the real world. If you've ever felt drawn to something before, you could explain why you're in the right place. Welcome to Subtext. Brand building in 2026 seems completely backwards from what we used to know. The companies spending the most on advertising are actually seeing the lowest trust scores. And that changes everything about how brands need to grow.
That's fascinating and completely counterintuitive. What's driving this massive shift?
Well, the data shows something really interesting. Nearly half of all consumers now discover brands through social platforms, but here's the twist. That discovery alone isn't moving the needle anymore. People are looking for something deeper before they commit.
You know what this reminds me of? I was just reading about how modern consumers are valuing emotional clarity as much as price and quality now.
Exactly. And here's what's wild about that. The most successful brands in 2026 are essentially functioning as anxiety reducers. They're not just selling products, they're actually helping regulate people's nervous systems. I was looking at some recent market research that showed brands focusing on emotional safety are seeing conversion rates 3 times higher than traditional approaches.
That makes me think about this luxury brand I was studying. They completely redesigned their customer experience to remove all friction points, not just in the buying process, but in how people felt about the purchase afterward.
That's such a perfect example of how microsegmentation is working now. Instead of trying to appeal to everyone, brands are creating these incredibly specific emotional experiences for distinct audience segments. The data shows that brands speaking to everyone are seeing engagement drops of up to 40%.
Speaking of engagement, can we talk about how AI is reshaping everything? Because I'm seeing some really interesting patterns there.
Oh man, the AI situation is fascinating. You know what's really surprising? The brands using AI most successfully aren't the ones with the most advanced technology. They're the ones using it most thoughtfully. I was just analyzing some customer satisfaction data that showed AI interactions that feel invasive can tank trust scores by up to 60%.
That's exactly what I've been noticing. The winners are using AI to enhance human connection, not replace it.
And this ties directly into what we're seeing with community building. The fastest growing brands in 2026 aren't just running campaigns. They're creating these incredible spaces for participation. I was looking at some engagement metrics that showed community-driven brands are seeing loyalty rates 5 times higher than traditional marketing approaches.
Well, that makes me think about how these communities are actually scaling. It's not through advertising, right?
Not at all. And here's what's fascinating about that. These communities are growing through shared language, shared rituals, and shared values. The data shows that brands with strong community elements are seeing organic growth rates 300% higher than those relying on traditional marketing.
You know what's really interesting about that? It's completely changing how brands have to think about purpose and values.
Absolutely right. And the metrics on this are crystal clear. Brands that just make statements about their values without operational follow-through are seeing trust scores plummet by up to 70%. It's not enough to say you care anymore. You have to prove it in every interaction.
That reminds me of how the traditional marketing funnel has basically collapsed. Everything happens in the same moment now.
Right. And here's what's wild about that collapse. With shoppable content everywhere, brands have lost that buffer zone between discovery and purchase. I was looking at some conversion data that showed purchase decisions are happening 75% faster than they were just 2 years ago.
So what does this mean for how brands actually need to grow in 2026?
Well, the data points to this fascinating paradox. The brands growing fastest are actually doing less traditional marketing. They're focusing on what the research calls presence over persuasion, being consistently trustworthy rather than consistently visible. The metrics show that brands taking this approach are seeing customer lifetime values increase by up to 400%.
That's such a profound shift from how we used to think about brand building.
And here's what I think is most important about all of this: it's not just a marketing trend, this is a fundamental shift in how brands need to operate to survive. The successful ones aren't just selling products or services anymore, they're becoming these stable reference points in people's lives. The data shows that brands that understand this are seeing growth rates that completely defy traditional marketing metrics.
So it's really about creating value through trust rather than just capturing attention.
Exactly. The brands that will win in 2026 and beyond are the ones that understand this isn't about being the loudest or the flashiest. It's about being the most consistently trustworthy presence in people's lives. And that's a completely different game than what we used to play.